Everybody, I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Here's what I want you to know about the fourth stimulus check. Pelosi and progressives signal $3.5 trillion spending bill will likely be slimmed. Yes, everybody, Nancy Pelosi is going to cut the $3.5 trillion infrastructure package. So, this might mean a cut in our fourth stimulus payments. And that's all because of Speaker Pelosi and several progressives. Nancy Pelosi and Pramila Jayapal have signaled that the $3.5 trillion spending bill might be slimmed down as Democrats struggle to reach an agreement over the size and scope of President Biden's economic agenda. Here's what Nancy Pelosi is saying about this.
That you may have after, but first I want to acknowledge the special guests we have with us. As you know, we are moving closing some of the discussions that we have had on the legislation to honor the President of the United States vision for our country, to build back better.
Now, the standoff between moderates and progressives over the size and scope of the larger stimulus bill has threatened to delay the passage of two bills. Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema believe that the $3.5 trillion price tag is too high, and progressives say they only support the bipartisan bill if it's passed in tandem with the spending bill. So yes, folks, there's a lot of negotiations around the fourth stimulus check. Therefore, this is causing many Americans to not receive the much-needed stimulus payments that they so desperately need.
Millions of people are out of work, unemployed. Future millions are held back for no good reason other than our failure to act. So the choice couldn't be clearer. We have learned from past crises the risk is not doing too much, the risk is not doing enough. And this is the time to act now. I've asked Secretary Yellen, who's been leading this effort, to come in and we're going to go into some detail among ourselves, but I think she has a statement to make.
Now, Congress has authorized already 3 rounds of economic impact payments. This was all done to help Americans throughout the crisis. Although the first went out without much haggling, the later direct payments of stimulus checks encountered much more resistance, specifically from Republicans. The 3-round stimulus checks were sent by 2 different administrations, and President Biden has made clear his position regarding a fourth stimulus check. By the way, folks, what do you think about President Biden so far? Is he doing all that it takes to send out the fourth stimulus check?
Let's get this straight. It's not only that people will be badly hurt if we don't pass this package in terms of increased rate of debt, in terms of poverty, a whole range of things, but we will also be hurt long-term economically.
Tell me in the comments below. Now, Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, said that President Biden is happy to hear from a range of ideas on what would be most effective and what's most important to the economy moving forward. It has been reported that the White House staff has been given a presentation on automatic stabilizers or recurring payments should economic conditions worsen. Now, with centrist Democrats along with their Republican colleagues, it's going to take a lot of work from President Biden to unite both the Democrats and the Republicans in sending out the fourth stimulus check. Looking back at past negotiations that resulted in stimulus checks being sent out, the situation was the most determinant factor in how long it took. Congress and the White House acted swiftly to get the first round of stimulus checks passed with little resistance. The direct payments of up to $1,200 payments per adult began landing in accounts just a matter of weeks after the official start of the crisis. Although calls for more stimulus checks began almost immediately, Congress did not get to work back until the summer, and the negotiations between the White House, congressional Democrats, and Senate Republicans seemed to go in endless circles. Only when lawmakers were urged with a government shutdown was there any meaningful movement to send out the third round of checks. The third stimulus check became part of the post-presidential campaign for control of the Senate. These $600 per adult and child stimulus checks were blasted as too little from the former president, and he called for $2,000 payments. The Democrats and some Republicans ran without the ball, which in part helped push the 2 Democratic candidates in runoff races for the Senate over the finish line. President Biden had made a promise to act quickly, but as well the clock was ticking toward a hard deadline of March 14th. When enhanced unemployment benefits were due to expire. Congressional Democrats did not want to wait for their Republican colleagues to come on board using a parliamentary tool known as budget reconciliation, allowing them to avoid a certain filibuster and pass the American Rescue Plan along party lines. Not a single Republican joined the Democrats, though. Currently, the House committees are making up legislation for the American Jobs Plan, part of President Biden's infrastructure proposal. Now, talks between the White House and the Republicans have come to a stalemate after both sides moved to their positions. But the latest counteroffer from the GOP negotiators was underwhelmingly in the eyes of the Biden administration. President Biden wants to have a bill ready by July, with or without Republicans, although he has said that he is committed to reaching a bipartisan deal. He may have no choice, with Joe Manchin stating his opposition to doing away with the filibuster and toward using budget reconciliation to forego working across the aisle. Who's to blame for holding back our stimulus payments, everybody? Tell me in the comments below.
So I want to begin today talking about debt limit by returning to three very frightening statistics. The first is 15 trillion. That is the amount of household wealth that a leading economist recently warned could be wiped out of the economy should the government default on its debt. The second is 6 million. That's the number of jobs that the same analysis said could be lost should a default become a reality. The third statistic is 9%. That's the unemployment rate our country potentially faces if we don't do our jobs to raise the debt ceiling. Now, none of these statistics, none of these numbers need become a reality if both parties unite in the coming days to pass the continuing resolution sent to us by the House. It would keep the government open for 3 months. It would provide funding for disaster relief and Afghan refugees. And of course, it would suspend the debt ceiling until the end of 2022, so we can pay for the debt incurred at the end of the previous administration. Every single member of this chamber is going to go on record as to whether they support keeping the government open and averting a default, or support shutting us down and careening our country towards a first-ever default. Democrats will be united in supporting the passage of the CR. It's the right thing to do for the American people, and it would immediately stop these unnecessary crises that are knocking at our doorstep. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters in a legislative body is how you vote. That is the most important thing we do. There are many other important things, but that is the one that matters the most. It's what our constituents sent us here to do. Now, Senate Democrats have said repeatedly that they're all for avoiding a government shutdown. They have said repeatedly that the debt ceiling must be raised. So I want to offer a novel suggestion. If Republicans want to avoid default, then they should vote yes. If the Republicans want to keep the government open, they should vote yes. But incredibly, Leader McConnell's spinning a web of subterfuge, deception, and outright contradictions, has said that he is going to vote no, and he urges Republicans to vote no. This is Alice in Wonderland logic. Republicans claim to oppose a default, but they're saying they're